Still on, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's still on.
Okay, you're ready? Yes. Okay, so certainly, Sana, thanks so much for coming. This, of course, is our third State of the Peace address coming from the NCAC, where we try to address matters that are affecting Kenya, update you on the status of different peace initiatives, the court cases, and different things that the Commission is doing and looking towards. Karibuni. We're just about to start, so if you could get situated. Yeah. Okay, we'll give you a few minutes to set up. Right? Is that okay with the rest of it? All right. So,
I don't have to say anything.
I'll introduce you, but you don't have to.
We're giving you time so that you can set up.
You go to Jane or you have to talk to her? You talk to Jane about this one?
No, I have talked to
You
her.
talk to her.
But she will call you.
She goes. Yes, I'll follow up so that but this ones I think we have also give the department matter if we handle that.
Okay. Sounds.
This is yours.
Okay, tuko sawa? You need Okay. Tuko tayari? All right, so I was saying this. Welcome to the third State of the Peace address, where the NCIC seeks to address issues that may be of concern to Kenyans, but also to update the country on the goings on. For example, we'll update you on court cases, we'll update you on the social media environment, and you'll be updated about the various peace initiatives that the institution is taking. Now, this is a special edition because we're going to be launching the Lexicon of hate words considered as hate speech in this country. We're calling it the hate lex. Now, without much further ado, please let me allow a member of our new language literati, Madocho wa Kanairo. I almost said wa Nairobi. That would have been a totally different place, as you can imagine, to give us a small presentation on how you need to chorea mbwekze. Yes, Madocho, please go ahead.
Disadi chorea mbwekze kwanza inamaanisha chore. Oh.
Come.
Okay.
Kuja hapa.
Mnadai kuna utu jina. Sawa. Oyo Kanairo Madocho ni mjamo. It's hiyo ndo jina ya mine. in this year life manze, tuna give shukran sana na my youths out there, nawambia jo, chorea mbwekse. Chorea mbwekse inamaanisha chorea crime, chorea negative energy, chorea negative everything, yani kuwa tu positive minded. Elections bila noma, na ni riang ni za kishombo tolo jo, anaku jo, alafu jo, utu unanipata, unanitanapa. Utu ni uchaguzi true ndo utu. Kwa riang ya kisasa hivi ni wacha niitole slang, utruzi. Usikuwe mtu mtruzi, kwa mtu mtrue, si mtu mrazi. Pale ghetto usichukue kidi urushiane, usi-use bad words. Unadigi bad words like zaki hatupangwingwi unruly. It's izojo tiach sana inadisi ya vulai. So na inadisi ya vulai pale ghetto tuna riang flani initiative inaitwa Guta City. Simply means getting over trials and temptation in adulthood. Pale ghetto unajua kuna kwanga na city, kwa hivyo ukiwa kwa ghetto una aim to live in the city, ndo maana Guta City kakama hapo. So manze, kuwa mtu mtrue, usikuwe mtu mzi, usikuwe mtruzi. Alo waya.
Okay, thank you. In the dictionary of what, but that's why we're here, to show that the NCIC is truly not only of our native languages, but also the languages that are coming up in our streets, to ensure that we have a clear picture of what's happening. The man of the hour, the chairman of the NCIC, the Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, please, sir, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I want to believe that you are not lost, as I was on what Madosho was saying. For us in NCSC, it's critically important that we take seriously the biggest population percentage in the country, and that is of the young people. It is true that in Kenya today, the young are facing as a top priority in the budget. In time, we would want to applaud the youth of Kenya because of the way they have managed under very big odds, because we know that the formal employment can only absorb a very small percentage, even of those who are going through. It is therefore important that those young people who are using their brains, they are using their talents, they are using the skills that they have to be creative, imaginative, and be self-employed. And it is for that reason I would say that when we see the budget that takes into account the wasanii, the artists and so forth, who previously have not been facilitated enough, really, but now there's going to be in the budget a big section that will facilitate the young people and particularly artists. And that is why when we have a Kenyan youth like Madosho here, we wanted to encourage them and we wanted to work with them so that we are able also as a commission that is mandated to contribute or help the inclusion of all Kenyans and avoid exclusion of any Kenyans on the basis of any identity. So that is why for us, it's very, very good that we have been joined by Madosho here. With me also is Harrison Karaoke, who is the head of the finance and administration in the NCIC. As Mark said, this is the third time that I am addressing you and through you, Kenyans, on the state of peace and the political decency as we move on to August this year during the elections. So what I'll do is just to have a brief update on where we are on the state of peace and political decency, and then I will launch the hate lex. And this is the lexicon that we have, a list of words that are categorized as hate speech. And I'll explain why we consider this to be important. But first of all, let me very briefly update you on where we are on the state of peace and political decency, even as the campaigns continue to heat up. We know that violence ahead of the August 2022 elections remain really a core business for us in NCIC. At the onset, let me commend the judiciary for delivering the long-awaited determination of the Building Bridges Initiative. In this regard, we urge you and all Kenyans to respect the determination of the court and refrain from politicizing the outcome of the ruling. Because if it is politicized and still continues to occupy space, time, and resources, then we'll be engaging on a matter that has really been determined by the highest court on the land. And that is why we feel that we accept what now the ruling was and move on. Commitment to Kenya was to issue monthly statements on the state of peace and political decency in the country. And with the 124 days to the elections, I wish to speak on a number of issues, not all the issues, because we'll give you a release on this. But first of all, I want to look at the hate speech and inflammatory attacks, because this is one of the issues that we identify that if not well dealt with, they could easily lead to violence in the run-up to or during the elections or after the elections. Inflammatory attacks, ethnic contempt, hate speech, political intolerance, as well as zoning of regions have become the order of the day in the recent past. I have in the recent past issued statements in regards to the incidences that we witnessed. I wish to commend the government agencies that picked up the matter for investigations. We call on Kenyans to ensure that they embrace issue-based politics over tribal or any other form of divisive narratives. And media platforms. Because these social media platforms are flooded with ethnic hatred, hate speech, and incitement to violence. Since March 2022, last month, we flagged out 12 which are under cyber forensic investigations. Indeed, this is a rise compared to the previous months. We have noted regroupings and new political forums in the social media platforms. This can be attributed to the ongoing party nominations and the upcoming general elections, obviously. The main perpetrators of these are advent followers of 2022 politics of succession, mainly and largely Azimio and the UDA followers. And we are concerned over the upward trajectory of political intolerance among dominant political parties. Over the past 2 weeks, we have observed instances of violence among followers of major political parties. This is uncalled for, and this must stop before it plunges the country into serious violence. We condemn such actions of hooliganism, stone throwing, incitements, and bitter exchange, which might draw us to dark ages before multi-party democracy was attained in our country. While protesting is a democratic right for every Kenyan, and it is clearly in our constitution and other legal documents. So you can protest, you can demonstrate, you can picket. All this is allowed. But it must be done within the confines of the law. I urge the political leaders to rein on their rogue members, because these are the ones who are likely to go overboard. But the political parties, the leadership in particular, has a responsibility to rein on their followers. We have also been concerned about border groups, which are being used as criminal groups and as gangs. From the concluded hotspot mapping done by our commission across the 47 counties, we are gravely concerned that some border groups are metamorphosing into criminal gangs. We call upon relevant bodies to arrest the situation before it goes out of hand. As a commission and in cooperation with the NYS, we commit ourselves to train border riders on cohesion and the national ethos and values, even as we call other actors to also provide basic entrepreneurship and leadership training to bolster the sector. We ourselves, as you might recall, we had a national symposium with borders. In fact, that was the second national symposium that we had. And we are sympathetic, obviously, to the border riders, the conditions under which they do their work. And we know that most of them are law-abiding people. But as we have stated, there are those that are now being used by even politicians to become gangs, and they are being trained and they are hired to especially harass and sometimes even attack political opponents. They really must stop. Therefore, we have been in this discussion with the NYS. As you know, NYS is being used, is participating in the registration or re-registration of Boda Boda. And that is why we are working with them. And we have agreed that as NCIC, because we have the capacity and we have experience in training on values, on ethics, on work ethic, and on decorum. And that is why we have decided that we will indeed join in training these Boda Boda riders. On the state or status of hate speech, we have, there are 39 social forums which are being monitored very closely. 39 social forums. And these are 49 cases which are under different stages of active investigation. 10 cases are before courts and they have been reported to the Communications Authority. And the 7 cases are pending what we call conciliation. But these ones, the 49 that are being actively monitored, we are going to use the findings in order to know whether we can now move to the level of recommending prosecution and hand them over to the DPP. Now, social monitoring is what I would like to also emphasize here, because as I have said, as our research shows, the perpetrators of hate, of violence, have now migrated very strongly to social media, because they know that when it is on political platforms, physical platforms, we are easily going to be able to get them. The report that we have highlights the progress analysis for the month ending 31st of March. And in the course of this month, of last month, we encountered 7 or 8 areas, but I just wanted to mention some of them. And the report seeks to answer the following questions. No, these are the following questions, the 7 questions. The number of cases flagged out, investigated, and finalized. One, when we give you the report, you will see that. The second area, the questions are asked on is issues causing a stir in the country. The third is social media platforms being monitored closely, the 49 that I mentioned. Number 4 is the challenges that these are presenting, particularly when it comes to peace in the electoral process. violence that could contribute to even the campaigns as we move on. The second area that has caused a lot of stir is the stoning of Raila's chopper after Mzee Kibo's burial. That clearly, as we have seen, and even in the media, has caused a stir. And then finally, is the shooting of the Mvita aspirant, Honorable Ali Mwatao, which happened as how much stir it has caused and the possibility of it being pitting Kenyans against the Kenyans. And that is why we felt it's important to follow this through. Now, on the social media platforms still, apart from Facebook and Twitter, you also, of course, have YouTube. The highest number that we identified to be spreading hate, incitement, as I have said, is clearly in the Facebook, followed by Twitter. In addition, we also received emails from the general public who are reporting complaints to us. And we received 15,666 SMSs in the course of March, those which are reporting the cases. And it is on the basis of that we analyze and come up with the figures that I have given. And out of these reports, we have identified hate speech and incitement in a number of areas that I'm going to mention very, very quickly, because we have realized that, as has been reported, there are many new formations, including the gangs. There is a Lamu County Politics, which a group has formed itself that is following on Lamu County Politics. There is Migori Revolutionist Council, MRC. You know, Migori, not Mombasa. There is a MRC of Mombasa. There is MRC now, Migori Revolutionist Council. There is the Kalijini Forum. There is the new Mamanzi Borana. There is Voices of Change. The Marsabit County we all want and has its members, and this is really rising because of the way the situation in Marsabit is. The Marsabit County we want, this is a counter to the other Marsabit County we all want. Then there is the biggest and the highest is the Raila Odinga for president. This group is the biggest and is growing very fast. There is a group Kericho County. There is a Baba the Fifth, inawezekana Azimio la Umoja. There is a Western Igishu County Forum. There is a Bungoma County Forum and Azimio la Umoja. Apart from Azimio la Umoja itself as a coalition or alliance, there is also another group just calling itself Azimio la Umoja. And there is Group Kenya. These, we have identified these as the most recent formations that are likely to foment hate because they are becoming active, and obviously they will be confronted by others. We have also been monitoring the issues, the sites that are manually, you know, the ones I mentioned are the social media, but manually we also have a number of platforms that we are monitoring, but I'm not going to bother you too much with that. But besides using the literal privileges that we have in the terms of tools that we have also tried to capture some posts and the platforms by manually maneuvering throughout the various sites likely to spread hate and incitement. And this is happening all over the country, but especially, of course, in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, and Nakuru. Now, there are also anonymous accounts. Most of the social accounts that we have mentioned are anonymous, but working with the Communications Authority and with the DCI, we are able now to actually get to know who these are, even though they appear to be anonymous, plus also, of course, those which are using pseudonyms. Considering the security measure that have been put up in these platforms, it becomes difficult to identify a user who has a fake account. And that is why we have said that what we want, and we are in the process of acquiring the technologically sophisticated gadgets that are going to help us in this area. Now, before I come to the launch of the HateLex, the Lexicon, let me update you very quickly on the various peace initiatives that NCIC has taken in the last 1 month. The Commission convened a meeting with the Northeastern Regional Commissioner, Mr. James Kianda, together with the elders in Garissa, to find lasting solutions to conflicts that have escalated into the violence there. The situation in Garissa that led to the announcing the curfew there is very much land-based. This is because there are speculators who have encroached on land of other people, and particularly in Garissa town, which has led to formation of gangs, and this has led to killings, and that is why a curfew was established there. The Commission has conducted a research on the impact of conflict on business ecosystem in labor populations that include the tea, flower, and the sugar plantations. The conflict on business, as we have said, we have identified those areas, particularly tea, flower, and the sugar plantations, because these are others that are also likely to be used by, again, speculators who want to profit unfairly from these industries. We have had targeted sensitization forums for the youth, women, and religious leaders, among others, on peace, cohesion, and peaceful elections. I had a meeting with the leaders of the Interreligious Council of Kenya, where we have agreed to work together, including in monitoring hate speech on FM radios using vernacular in different parts of the country. Inter and intra-communal dialogue forums have been used to promote coexistence and reconciliation. Even as we talk now, we have sent people to Wajir, where there is a cross and on on dialogue on cross-border violence. And we have identified these areas not only in the places where the border across the country, international borders, but even within and between counties. And we are setting up mediation support units in Laikipia, Kisumu, Kericho, Kisumu, Nandi, Kisumu, Kericho, Nandi area. That is an area that we have been concerned with for some time, but more recently, it has been reported to us that in fact that area, which as you remember, even in 2017, and of course in 2007, 2008. That is an area that is a hot spot that we are now monitoring very closely, and the report on what has been going on is about to be concluded. And then the training and the capacity building for actors in the criminal justice system on hate speech management. The seventh is monitoring hate speech in public spaces, including social media, of course, I have said platforms, and attending court hearings. The eighth is integrated media campaigns, including peace messaging and dissemination of information, education, and communication materials through the national and vernacular radio stations. And finally, we have continued to monitor different political rallies and investigations of hate speech cases. Now, there are four upcoming events of the commission. This is the last one now that I have. And that is, there'll be a release, and that is a work that has been going on for some time. But this week, we have released the policy brief on lessons from the 2021 elections in Zambia, where NCIC was involved in elections, observing elections there. Now, then we have plans to launch national action plan on or against hate speech. And this is a national plan which, when launched, will be the first of its kind anywhere in the world. And this is what we have learned because we are doing this in cooperation with the Office of the UN Secretary General, who have said, and they are very keen on this and would like to be present when this launch is done, because they would like to use it intentional interventions there. They are likely to lead to more violence. And then finally, we are going to have an integrated media campaigns, including peace messaging and the dissemination of information, education, and communication materials through the national and the vernacular radio stations, as I mentioned. We are working with the National Councils of Elders, and now more recently, the Interreligious Council of Kenya. We are concerned because we have realized that the FM radio on vernacular languages is actually being used very actively in hate speech and incitement. So that's the update that I wanted to give. And now I come to the major business of today, really. And that is of launching the hate Lex. This is the press release that I'm going to give you after I read it. And then we are going also to give you copies of the lexicon that we are launching today. And I hope by the end of this press briefing, we'll have copies. Now, the statement that I wanted to issue as I launched this hate lex, that's what we are calling this lexicon. The book of James in the Bible, chapter 3 and verse 5, reads as such: "Even so, the tongue is a little member, and it can boast of great things. see how much wood or how great a forest, a tiny spark can set ablaze. James chapter 3 and verse 5. Our tongues may be small members of the body, but they do certainly cause unspeakable trouble both in our homes and in our societies. We know tongues have ruined marriages and the tongues have caused wars. As students of history, we also know that every serious genocide, mass killings, tribal clashes, ethnic cleansing has always been led by using words to dehumanize a people. More than bullets, it is words that set the ground for ethnic disquiet. It is with this crystal clear understanding that we chose to create a list of words that we know are problematic in how they are used in the 2022 campaigns and the electoral process. These are not words that we have chosen because we felt like, but rather they are words we have listed because we followed conversations and how those conversations have been framed towards violence. We are fully aware that politicians will try to say that we are targeting their slogans, but this isn't about slogans, but rather how those are used and what is currently obtained. Any word that we have listed here is a word that has been used as a tool to rally hate against a group of people. We will not sit and twiddle our thumbs as words are used to ignite our country. As we read out these words, we urge you to not look at it with the typical political exuberance, but with soberness. Politicians must remember that though it is easier to mobilize via division, it is much more noble to mobilize by unity and bridging the divides that can form between us. I will just give you a sample of what you will find in the lexicon that we are launching today. What we have done is we have terms that are in English, in Swahili, we have one in Kikuyu, in Kalenjin, in Kimero, Sheng language. And I wanted to state clearly that this lexicon is a living document. It will continue to grow as we get even feedback, because there might be many other words and terms and phrases and code names that we might not have identified. But I trust that with the feedback, this lexicon will continue to grow. In English terms, I just mentioned 4. One is fumigation. And what we have done, we have columns that show the translation of the word, the targeted community, the user community, and the meaning. If you take fumigation, for example, it means the action or process of disinfecting or purifying an area with the fumes of certain chemicals. The targeted community is non-locals, where that word is used is the non-locals who are the targeted community. The user community is the locals who consider themselves as really owning that place. And the meaning is that net violence on non-locals so that they can vacate the area before the election's date. Then the term uncircumcised, which translated as it is said of a man who is not circumcised. The target community is communities seen to be opposing the political party, and the user are usually politicians or their followers. And the meaning, it refers to communities which traditionally did not embrace circumcision as their rite of passage. For example, the Luo, the Turkana, and others. The word eliminate, which translated in this usage, completely remove or get rid of something or somebody or some bodies. The target community, communities perceived to support the dominant political party in the area in question. And who are the user community? Communities seen to support opposing political parties. The meaning, kill members of this community which is perceived not to support the dominant political party in that area. And the same, of course, eliminate is used, but kill is also used with the same kind of meaning. Now, when we come to Kiswahili terms, we have a kafir, which translated into, well, it's of course derived from the Arabic term kafir, which means disbeliever or one who conceals the truth. The target community is non-Muslims. The user community are Muslims. And the meaning is a negative reference to majority who are living, no, minority who are living in predominantly Muslim community. Second is Mandoadoa, which is very well known because that's the one that has been very recently used, and we have taken action against that, which of course means dots. And the target community is non-locals, and the user is political aspirants and their supporters of dominant political party in an area. And the meaning is, it is used to refer to people who are non-locals living in a place dominantly known to be inhabited by a certain community. It's considered as a way of inciting one tribe against the other. Mende, cockroach. I will not go really into this. Now you will read it since you have the document. And the muhajir is another one, which is also an Arabic word meaning migrant. And the targeted community is non-Muslim communities in a predominantly Muslim community, and is used by Muslims. This term refers to settlers who do not believe in similar faith with the locals. Sheng, and there are many Sheng terms that we have, and we'll continue to get more from those who use it more, but we have just identified the two at the moment. Kama noma, noma. Kama baya, baya. Now, the literal translation, if it is bad, then it is bad. And targeted community is political aspirants, and perceived the supporters of the less dominant political party in an area. And the user community is political aspirants and supporters of the dominant political party in that particular area. What it means is that it's perceived as the statement that if an opposing political party plays foul, then party supporters should unleash the severest form of counter-attack. Another Sheng phrase we have used is Operation Linda Kura, which means secure the vote, used by political aspirants and the supporters of the less dominant political party in an area. That's the targeted group, used by political aspirants and the supporters of the dominant political party. This statement is perceived as a rallying call by the political party to ensure that there will be rigging and the voters should police the process on the polling day. If people not mandated to be observers, political parties, agents, or any other functionaries remain in the polling station during the polling day, it may portend a recipe for violence. Then two words in Kikuyu, kehe, which means uncircumcised, and that has been mentioned before. The other one is Odhamaki Newitu, which means the kingdom or the governance the government is us. And it is targeted, the target community is non-Kikuyu contenders, urban communities, and the user, of course, are the Kikuyu. Meaning, the term refers to the notion that the Kikuyu are and should remain the ruling class in the country. It is used in reference to national leadership, which is said to belong to the Kikuyu community and not any other community. Then we have Kalenjin terms. I don't know whether I'll pronounce it correctly. Kemurkeldet, which means brown teeth. And this is targeted, the Kikuyus living in a Kalenjin community, because many of them, as you know, might have had brown teeth for whatever reason. But the meaning is that this is a derogatory term referring to a person with brown teeth, with the implication that they cannot even undertake personal hygiene effectively. Otutu labotonic, uproot the weed. Non-Kalenjin community is the target, and the user is the Kalenjin. It means, it may be used to mean that there are strangers who are a threat within the community, hence should be eliminated. The third and the final one, getik. Again, it means uncircumcised, and that we have seen it before. So I just wanted to sample those terms, say this is what, and there is a lot more in our hate lex, which is the lexicon on hate speech. I will end there. And they want to know, do we have copies of the hate lex?
The copies are on the way. They just need.
Copies are on the way.
Yes.
Asanteni sana. That's my presentation. Over to you.
A hand to the chairman. Okay. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
My name is Abdiaziz Ashim from Metro TV. Last time we were here, you were talking about summoning the ODM leader, Raila Odinga. Where are you with that? And given that last week you had a sit down and shared a podium with the DPP, and the last time we were here, you were saying the weak link in terms of following these hate speech cases to its logical conclusion, it's between the DPP and the CJ. Did you ever talk to them in terms of tightening that loophole?
Yes. Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to say that yes, the summoning of the former Prime Minister still stands. Now, when it comes to the weakest link, as we had mentioned previously, it is true on Monday we had a sitting with the DPP and with the Chief Justice during the opening of a training for prosecutors and even investigators at the Kenya School of Government. And I want to say that we have made tremendous progress here, where we have agreed with the DPP that we'll be going through a checklist of what is required for investigations, so that by the time we complete the investigations, we are confident that the evidence we have is watertight. And once we agree with that, then we'll have closed a loophole that I had mentioned the other time. Then when it comes to the judiciary, the Chief Justice, as you know, has established special courts, 6 special courts to deal with the cases of hate speech, and has given 6 months as the period within which the cases should be dealt with. So with that, I want to believe that those loopholes that we have had, and that silo kind of approach that we had before, has now been dealt with. And moving forward, I want to believe that we'll have better success than previously.
I will probably ask a question from this end. The compendium that just launched this Lexicon. How is possible if someone likely to use this in a court of law? And perhaps as a reference point where you likely to pass this to the agencies concerned. And my question to Bwana Kadosho, you and Bogi Genje have been having problems. I don't know if you're likely to come up with a collabo soon to actually solve the differences as the youth.
As far as the usage of the lexicon is concerned, what we have done is to now make it very clear that these words or these terminologies or these phrases have been considered as constituting hate speech. In the Constitution, Article 33, on expression of freedom of expression, you know that there are 3 or 4 exceptions. And one exception is hate speech. And in the NCI Act of 2008 and amended in 2012, which is now going through another amendment, part of the mandate of the NCIC is to come up with a list of people who are notorious, offenders, if I would use that word, of hate speech. And therefore, it is on that basis that we have felt that even though in the past we expected people to know that you shouldn't use mandoadoa, you shouldn't use mende or whatever, but now we are making it very clear that these are ones, so that those who use them then will know that they are doing it deliberately, and certainly will have to go after them.
About Asan Bogi Genje ni banje tu shen. Sina mbogi lies, bado ndo tunabanja, hatuja kaa chini tukabanja vitifi. Kwa hivyo hiyo swali yako bado iko on hold. Alafu sunana usini machaji. At the end of the day lazima tu reconcile. Jupale kwa hiyo gravitu ni guan na si wote ni mayut. Unaget? So ukileta zako Mbwekse mimi nilete jazz na kwa utatu za kirasta, peace, love and unity. Mwaiwai. Siko bie.
Okay, yes, that's the last question. Thank you.
Unafahamu kwamba hivi sasa katika eneo la Marsabit kunashuhudiwa vita na ghasia ambazo zinadaiwa kuchochewa na wanasiasa, maana kulingana na sources ni kwamba vinaendelea kwa sasa. So kama NCC mnachukua hatua gani kuhakikisha kwamba hao watu wanaodaiwa kuchochea wanachukuliwa hatua za kisheria, na pia kama mnafahamu takwimu ni zipi?
Ni kweli kabisa huko Marsabit kama vile umesema visa vya uhalifu na uchochezi ni vingi sana, na sisi tukiwa NCIC tunafuatilia vilivyo. Kwa mara ya pili tumekuwa na kikao na viongozi wa Marsabit. Ya mwisho ilikuwa tu wiki kadhaa zimepita, kama wiki 3 hivi. Tulikuwa na hicho kikao pale State House. Rais mwenyewe ndio aliwaita viongozi, na ni sisi tukiwa NCIC tukifanya kazi na Ministry of Interior tulipatiwa jukumu ya kufuatilia, na hata jana nilikuwa na mkutano na viongozi wale walikuja kutoka Marsabit, wale wangependa kuona ni kwa njia gani tunaendelea na hiyo mambo ya kutatua shida za Marsabit. Kama vile umesema, na sisi kweli tumeshangaa kuona kwamba mjini Marsabit na hata Moyale, hata Marsabit yenyewe, in the streets kuna watu ambao hata jana 2 days ago 7 people were killed there, and it was reported to us. That is why we now want to take it very, very seriously and see what can be done, because there were conditions that were given by the president. Kwa hivyo hiyo tunafuatilia kabisa tukiwa NCIC, na tutakuwa na kikao na professional associations of all the major ethnic communities za Marsabit. Asanteni sana.
Okay, thank you. So that's it. No. We are out of time. Unless you have questions for Madocho, we'll be here to translate what he said. We'll have to release the chair. Asanteni sana. Madocho, you can give them a last speech and inspire them for elections Bilanoma 2022.
Mintabanjia ma youth dem out there. Vitu kwa yogra kwanza ni gwani, inamaanisha vitu kwa ground ni different. So elections Bilanoma, si tumemwok na pia sisi yetu uchaguzi ni utu. Tukileta kuangishe kwa sheng sasa inakuwa utruzi. Uache kukua mtu mrazi. Inakuwa mtruzi. Unakuwa mtu mrili, usikue mrazi. Na piga kura machaji out there. Tunaweza make big difference na mtumie mongo. Ukitumia mongo, hautabaki ukiwa Darfur nyenye. Darfur nyenye ni furda. Udu yani. Na bado utawaiwai, hautakuwa Kidale. Awo, siko bie. Mimi niko tifi.
Asanteni sana.